US military blockade on Iran's southern coast has taken effect. President Donald Trump says any Iranian Navy vessel approaching American warships will be eliminated. Washington is piling pressure on Iran after weekend talks failed to reach a deal to end the war. Well, under the blockade, the US says ships going to and coming from Iranian ports will be intercepted, along with vessels that pay Iran for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Well, Tehran's responded by threatening all ports in the Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. The Revolutionary Guard says military vessels in the Strait will be met with a forceful response.
The criminal America's restriction on the movement of maritime vessels in international waters is an illegal act and an example of piracy. The armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran explicitly and resolutely declares that the security of ports in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman is either for everyone or for no one. If the security of the ports of the Islamic Republic of Iran in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman is threatened, no port in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman will be safe.
Well, the US military says the blockade applies to all of Iran's ports, which stretch from the Gulf to the Gulf of Oman. Vessels travelling between non-Iranian ports will be allowed to transit the Strait of Hormuz. The waterway used to transport around a fifth of global oil supplies. It's been effectively blocked by Iran since the start of the war more than 6 weeks ago now. Well, in a moment, we'll speak with Ali Hashem in Tehran. But first, let's speak to our chief US correspondent, Alan Fisher, who's at the White House. So, Alan, the deadline has passed. Donald Trump has truthed. Any more clarity on what the US is trying to achieve here?
Well, Donald Trump has been in the Oval Office probably for the last 30 minutes or so, and in that time he's managed to put out a post on his Truth social media platform. We're going to throw it up on screen just now so you can take a look at exactly what he said. The president says Iran's navy is lying at the bottom of the sea, completely obliterated 158 ships. What we have not hit are their small number of what they call fast attack ships, because we did not consider them much of a threat. Warning, if any of these ships come anywhere close to our blockade, they'll be immediately eliminated using the same system of kill that we used against the drug dealers in the boats at sea. It's quick and brutal. So Donald Trump clearly laying out his guidelines for the military. Of course, this whole blockade has gone through a couple of iterations. First of all, it was a complete blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which kind of made no sense given that Donald Trump has spent the last several weeks trying to get Iran to open it. Then he made the decision that it was going to be blocked completely. CENTCOM, where the whole military operation is being coordinated, kind of put a finer point in it and said, look, this is going to impact ships that leave and try to enter Iranian ports. And so that's the situation we're in at the moment. It started just over an hour ago. The intention from the American side is to put pressure on the Iranians, but also to put pressure on others around Iran. For example, China takes about a third of their oil from Iran, and they've been able to do so during the war. By putting this embargo in place, by putting this blockade around Iranian ports, the Americans are hoping that that will put pressure on Iran, which will put pressure on China, which will then put pressure back on Iran to come to the negotiating table and give the Americans a deal that they can live with 9 days of the ceasefire still to go.
OK, Alan, so we've got the US pressure campaign now underway. Donald Trump, as you said, laying down the law. But all of this surely comes with risks as well. What are the perceived worries here, potentially?
Well, look, the issues are that the Strait of Hormuz kind of concentrates the targets. And so the United States have a bandwidth problem. Do they have enough ships to put in the Strait of Hormuz to make sure they can carry out what is an effective blockade of the Iranian ports? Donald Trump has said that other countries are going to help. We've got no details at all from the White House about what countries would possibly be involved in that. But there's a lot of tracking to be done. But if you put the Navy in a small area around coastal areas of Iran, the Iranians, if they perceive a threat, could potentially breach the ceasefire by firing surface missiles from the coast and also launch drones towards American targets. Now, given that there's a ceasefire, that might not happen. But what may happen is that the idea of some sort of takeover of Karg Island, remember we were talking about that more than a week ago, that they were going to send Marines in and seize control of Iran's oil industry. Well, they kind of don't have to do that now because they've got this blockade in place, and the Americans are hoping that that will hold enough to put pressure on the Iranians. So there are pros and cons in doing this. People I've spoken to think that this is perhaps the most sensible way for the Americans to approach it, not putting soldiers, troops at risk, and perhaps putting pressure on the Iranians in the right spots to get back to the negotiating table.
Many thanks, Alan. Alan Fisher there, live in Washington, D.C., our chief US correspondent. Let's go to Tehran, and we can speak to Ali Hashem live there. Good to see you, Ali. So the word from Alan Fisher is that this may be perceived as the most responsible way of piling the pressure on Iran, rather than launching another full-scale series of attacks on the Iranian mainland. Top Iranian military leaders are calling the US plan, though, a form of piracy. How are they explaining that, given their own stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, in fact, for the Iranians, they are dealing with this in a different way. The spokesperson for the armed forces and another spokesperson also for the Navy vowed that if the Iranian ports are closed, then all ports in the region are going to be closed. Besides, they've been saying that their military readiness and capacity is increasing gradually. Now, the most important thing, given the fact that Iran is already having this closure of the strait and agreeing with certain ships and countries to allow their vessels to trickle outside the Hormuz Strait, according to the mechanism put by the Iranians, now it's completely closed and there's no possibility for any vessel or ship or tanker to get in or to go out. So the situation here will be a pressure not only on Iran, it's going to be on Iran on one side, but also it's going to be a huge pressure on the global market. And this is actually what Iran was trying to do when it started the closure of the strait. So the issue here, things are getting in a way that are unexplainable. However, we're hearing news that the Iranian and American experts might be meeting soon. So it's not going to be a meeting between the officials, just like what happened a couple of days ago in Pakistan. Rather, it's going to be a meeting between experts from both sides to discuss two main issues: the Strait of Hormuz, managing the strait, and the other issue, the ideas that are being suggested right now for the enrichment dilemma.
Oh, right. Well, that's very interesting, Ali.
Something like this within the coming days.
Right. Right, yeah, no, just to clarify, Ali, you're suggesting that there may be a degree of communication on some kind of official level by both sides in this conflict. Let me get that right.
Yes, absolutely. There are actually attempts by several countries, the ones that are mediating between Iran and the United States, namely Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey, and others. There are others.
Okay,
who are trying now to bring them together. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Ali, many thanks for confirming that there appears that there is a door still open to a form of diplomacy at the level of kind of technical officials at the moment. Many thanks for the update. Ali Hashem there, live for us in Tehran.